Hey guys, so in this video we're going to carry on talking about state, and we're going to give a few more examples about how state works because it's a little bit of a new unintuitive type of concept that is worth spending a lot of time on. So in the last video I demonstrated how based on user events we can change what's being shown on the page, and that's through state. And so we had this button that changed the subheading when you clicked on it. And so the way that we did that is that we created a state variable and we made our HTML based on that state variable. And we changed the value of that state inside our click handler. So when the user clicks, we add an attribute called onClick to that element. And we pass that a function, and in that function we can do whatever JavaScript we want. But in this case, because we want to change the HTML on the page, change what's being shown on the page, we need to use state. And so the concept of state, the concept of showing something different on the page, is that we have to have some state variable, and our HTML has to be based on that state variable. So in some way, if we want this HTML element to change, it has to be weighted to this state variable, right? It has to some way be based on the state variable, some way be rely on the state variable. And so in this video, I'm going to show you like a few different things we can do with state and a few different ways that we use state to change what's being shown on the page. So let's make another state variable. I'm just going to clean up some of this other code. And we're going to call it show elephant. And then the function to update it we'll call set show elephant. And so this time the default value, because we want this to be a Boolean, so we want the default value to either be true or false. And so let's make it true. And so now we're going to replace this value with that state variable. And so now what this is saying is evaluate show elephant. If that's true, then evaluate this right side of the and render this. But if it's false, then don't go to the right side, don't render the gallery item. And so this is, we defaulted true. So we see the elephant. Now though, we can add a button. So if I make another button and I say hide elephant, and then in the button, let's just space this out. Instead of calling, so now we're going to call our set show elephant function, and now we're not changing the value to a string, we're changing the value to a Boolean, in this case, false. All right, so now we've got this button that says hide elephant. When you click on it, on click, it's going to set the elephant to be false. Set the show element state variable to be false. And what that's going to do is going to change this to be false. And now this is now no longer going to evaluate, and we won't see the elephant. So if I click on hide elephant, the elephant disappears. So let's make another state variable. I'm just going to clean up some of this other code. And we're going to call it show elephant. And then the function to update it we'll call set show elephant. And so this time the default value, because we want this to be a Boolean, so we want the default value to either be true or false. And so let's make it true. And so now we're going to replace this value with that state variable. And so now what this is saying is evaluate show elephant. If that's true, then evaluate this right side of the and render this. But if it's false, then don't go to the right side, don't render the gallery item. And so this is, we defaulted true. So we see the elephant. Now though, we can add a button. So if I make another button and I say hide elephant, and then in the button, let's just space this out. Instead of calling, so now we're going to call our set show elephant function, and now we're not changing the value to a string, we're changing the value to a boolean, in this case, false. All right, so now we've got this button that says hide elephant. When you click on it, on click, it's going to set the elephant to be false. Set the show element state variable to be false. And what that's going to do is going to change this to be false. And now this is now no longer going to evaluate, and we won't see the elephant. So if I click on hide elephant, the elephant disappears. And so that's how we use our state to control what we see in our HTML. So there we have, based on user event, we've changed what elements the user can see. So now we're not just controlling text, but we're controlling entire elements. We can now decide whether, when, how to show the elements. And so let's take it up to the next step. So that was hiding an element, but obviously we can hide it and now it's gone. How do we bring it back without, having to reload the whole page? So instead of hiding elephant, we can do toggle elephant. And so now what we want to do is not set it to false, is we want to set it to the opposite of what it is right now. And so this is, again, where we can now use the fact that we've got the state variable. This variable is holding the value. And based on the current value, you can change it. You can change it to something based on what the current value is, right? So instead, now what we want to do is we want to say const new show elephant value, let's say, equals to the opposite of what it is now. See, if you know about JavaScript or not, for a Boolean, you can inverse the Boolean by putting the exclamation mark before it. So this is now saying make new show elephant value equal to the opposite of whatever it is right now. And so here, now what we're doing is we are calculating what our state value should be, our new state value should be based on what is existing. And so this is a bit more advanced way we can use state. And now that enables us to be able to toggle the elephant. So anytime you want to do something based on what's currently, the value in your state. For example, like a simple example would be, let's say I did this subheading was, let's just say we changed the subheading thing to be plus clicked plus clicked. So we made this subheading, instead we made it like a number that represented how many times you clicked on the button, let's just say. And now what we would do in here, instead of setting it to a text, we set it to subheading +1, right? And so here, welcome to React tutorial image gallery inside a state variable plus clicked 1 time, click 2 times, click 3 times, etc. So anytime you want to show something and you want that thing to be based on what's currently in your state, so you hold a value and then you calculate based on that. And so now if we do the toggle elephant, we hide the elephant, now we bring the elephant back. And so this is the next level where you can make a calculation, and that will determine what's being shown on the screen. So, okay, what's next? So that's how we toggle the elephant. But what if we only wanted to show the elephant, how would we do that? Would we have to have a conditional render on each of these? So that is definitely one way to do it. And let's start with that. Right, how would we only show the elephant? So now we want to, I'm going to remove this code because I think it's getting a bit messy now. So let's just keep the one button, remove that subheading for now, just to make it easier to focus on what we're doing. So now what we want to do is we don't want to have show elephant, we want to have only show elephant, right? Set only show elephant. And so what that means is we're not now just controlling where the elephant is shown. If the elephant is being shown, or rather we want the elephant to always be shown, but sometimes we only want the elephant to be shown. So this would be filtering, right? This would be if you clicked only show elephant, only show elephant. So if you clicked only show elephant, you would want all the rest to be hidden. So this is like filtering, and then we could add more filters. We could filter by type, right? We could filter by insect or whatever. So how would we do that? So here now you want the elephant to always be shown, so you don't need to conditional render this, right? Under all circumstances, the elephant is being shown. But you do need to conditionally render everything else. So there's a couple ways you could do this. You could make a whole block here, only show elephant, and you can use, by the way, if you want to do multi-line JavaScript expressions, i.e. this expression goes on multiple lines, you can use normal brackets. So that's why I put normal brackets there. So that won't work because we need to, every HTML block needs to be wrapped in one like parent element. So if I put a fragment here, if you don't know what a fragment is, don't worry too much about it. It's just an empty element that we use to wrap other elements. So yeah, in React you have to have like one top level element, which is why we have like a div here. You couldn't have like another element next to it. Right now it's complaining. JS6 expressions must have one parent element. So anyway, that's just a little bit. But anyway, so this is what we could do. So if only show elephant is true, then currently the way we've written this, if only show element is true, then all of this will be shown, which is not what we want. So we want if only show elephant is true, then we want none of this to be shown. And so we need to actually inverse this. So now it will say, if only show elephant is true, this will evaluate to false, and then none of this will be shown. If only show elephant is false, this will evaluate to true, and then we'll see all of this. So let's make by default it equal to false, because we want the element to be shown. So we want all the elements to be shown at the beginning. So now, let's recap this. We've got our only show elephant variable. It's equal to false at the beginning. That's going to evaluate this to true, and we're going to see all of our animals. If we click on the button, we're going to inverse it. It's going to go from false to true, and then we're going to update the state. So then that's going to be true. Then this is going to evaluate to false, and this will not be shown. So let's see it. So currently we can see everything. Click on this, it should hide the rest of the animals. Done. If we click on it again, there it brings it back. So we still got the toggle functionality, so maybe we should have called this. Let's just say toggle only show. Just to make it a bit clearer. Toggle only show elephant. Cool. So that's a bit of an introduction about how other ways that we can use state variable, use a state variable to determine what we are showing on our page. In the next video, I'm going to keep talking about state, and I'm going to show you actually another more complicated way of how we can use a state variable to control what HTML we're rendering. Something that's going to be actually much more powerful, a much sort of nicer way of doing it, an easier way to manage. And so that's what we'll talk about in the next video.